the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And AJ Applegarth.
It's Sin Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixpack.net. With me, as usual, my co-host, AJ Applegarth. What is up, man?
Not much. It's been a day. Been a whirlwind day.
I mean, it's Sunday.
Shockingly, for me, it's been fairly productive. So
impossible.
I know.
Make
It's
that happen on Friday.
Very
when we are headed to the Expo.
No, I burned it all out today. So
yeah, we're screwed. Totally screwed.
2:00 leave time. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that might be better than last year. Yeah,
probably.
Pretty bad last year. Anyway, enough of that noise. All right, so tonight we're going to be covering the NFC West, our final division preview. Looking forward to getting these over with and moving on to some other fantasy football talk to get you all ready for the season. With that said, though, just want to remind everybody, hit that subscribe button, that like button, give us those ratings, leave those comments. We appreciate it. And also cannot go without mentioning, guys, join our Fantasy Six-Pack memberships. Sign up for one of our plans. We've got two of them. We've got the draft-only plan, which gets you access to our draft cheat sheet, and that's it pretty much. Then there's our all-access plan, and that one gets you access to the cheat sheet, the projections, the rankings, articles that are going to be behind the, accessible to members only as well. Our Discord channel, which will be phenomenal. You guys get on there. You can ask us anything. We've got redraft specialists. We've got dynasty specialists. We've got best ball. We've got, you name it. We've got things going on there. We're going to be doing AMAs periodically throughout the off season and the season as well. So definitely hit us up there. It's fantasysixpack.net/plans, and you can use promo code F6P and then early for 25% off. We're limiting that to the first 100 customers, so it will be a limited time thing only, but go ahead and hit that up. The link will be in the description wherever you're listening or watching, so if you don't catch the URLs and stuff, it will be there for you. All right, AJ, let's do our beer of the week.
Beer.
All right, what you got, AJ?
All right, I am drinking yet another one of the lovely northeastern beers that my buddy Jeff Sanders, shout out, Scott Fish division mate, lives about 15-20 minutes from me, so he went up to Boston area and got a bunch of beers. This one is the American Imperial IPA from Hill Farmstead Brewery. They're actually in Vermont. American Imperial IPA. Nice. It's called Double Citra, so full of mosaic and no Citra hops. Not just kidding.
We are on
very good, though.
Similar beers. We did not play in this at all. Another northeastern beer. So I was on vacation, and the beer store in Rehoboth, Delaware, can get some stuff from up there. So I've got one from Portland, Maine. It's Lone Pine Brewery OJ, and they've got a couple of these, but the one I got was the Citra Double Dry Hopped IPA. So I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it just says O-J. So yeah,
I don't think I've seen
northeastern beer, Citra Double. I mean, we didn't play this, folks, I swear. But this is a very good one. I gave it a 4.5, I believe. This one's a very solid beer. I like this one.
Nice.
And shout out to our editor and also fantasy football writer and baseball writer, Dan Johnson, who lives up in that area and has promised me he's going to figure out a way to get me some treehouse. So,
nice. I still have a couple of those left.
I'm looking forward to it. But
I'm saving.
All right, so let's jump into things here. And first and foremost, we got to bring on our guest of honor, friend of the show, Mr. Bob Harris. What is going on, man? Football diehard, Sirius XM, you are everywhere, and one of the nicest guys in the industry. Appreciate you coming on again, man. How's it going tonight?
It's going fantastic. I was a little confused there for a minute. I heard you say something about honor and me in the same sentence. That's odd.
Oh man, don't short yourself, man. You're a phenomenal guy. So we appreciate you coming on again.
I have no beer.
It's fine. It's fine.
That doesn't, yeah.
It's hot.
That doesn't change the fact that you're a phenomenal guy. So.
Yeah, we appreciate you for sure. So you ready to talk some NFC West?
Oh, there's like nothing going on in that division right now. So sure,
absolutely nothing
we're gonna
at all.
We don't. Well, there will be no shortage of topics.
Yes. All right. So how we like to do things here is we're gonna run through positions, go through some ADP, and then bring up kind of team by team specific questions. But first, we just like to start off here with a non-fantasy specific question, and that is for this division is leaving out like any injuries that are going to go down. Like look, if Stafford's elbow really is about to fall off, we don't really know at this point. But like if something drastic were to happen to the Rams, right? Then obviously they're out. But without predicting that kind of thing, is this their division to lose, or do you potentially see somebody else actually giving them a run for their money?
I think two teams, San Francisco and Arizona, could both give anyone a run for their money, and Seattle probably less so. So I know they don't want to call it a rebuild, but I'm not sure. It's it's not going well in Seattle. I don't think so. So yeah, I think Arizona could certainly push them. I mean, if they didn't have a late season collapse each of the last 2 years, who knows what would have gone on. That's something that will certainly be a focal point this year. After some of the reporting as the season wound down, Michael Bidwell not happy with the collapses. Cliff Kingsbury, the seat is hot, sir. Kyler Murray, it's not so hot apparently, but they need to be a little more creative offensively, and I think that would be helpful. Maybe their hands are tied a little bit earlier in the season, but I think as the season goes on, if they can, they have the pieces to do it. And of course, San Francisco has the pieces to do it, assuming Trey Lance is, not a huge hindrance, and we'll get more into him. But this is a roster that's built to win. That's why Jimmy Garoppolo started last year, right? Because if they didn't think they had a winning roster, they would have just thrown Lance in there and let him have at it. But they did not, and it was for a reason. And I think this year they really needed to get to the playoffs last year, I thought, and not that anyone was on the hot seat, but it had been a while. They really had to show something. They both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and I think they did. So they'll be a little more comfortable. But that's not to say, I mean, you look at that defense, you look at the assortment of skilled players available to them, the scheme, all those things can be, it wouldn't take much for them to move ahead. But, all that said, the Rams are clearly my favorite.
Yeah,
I think I would agree with that. It's
a little shout out here.
Scampers, my man. My cat.
Is Cliff Kingsbury a doofus?
Well, according to his girlfriend's Instagram, apparently not. Apparently he's got something going on. So no, I don't. Like there's just been such a lack of creativity at times. Everyone lining up in the same spot, and just some things that seem odd. And I think it's all on him, and he's got to correct that. But he certainly has the personnel to make things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the offense can be just lights out at times, man. Like they're just unstoppable. But man, they have those late season collapses where it just seems like you said, they get too predictable, and it's kind of like, now what? Okay, but yeah. All right. So let's jump into our quarterbacks here, and
all right. So how we do this is basically just go by their ADPs from Fantasy Pros, and it's sorted by the sleeper rankings. So first off, we have Kyler Murray at QB6. We've got Stafford at QB11. We've got Mr. Lance at QB13. Then it drops all the way down to Jimmy G at 33, and then Drew Lock at 37, and Geno at 55.
Locksmith combo.
Yeah, I mean that's a hell of a name actually. Now that I think about it, never really put those two together. Thankfully, because I don't think I've ever needed a locksmith. But either way, all right.
Neither
So
did Seattle.
yeah, exactly. So starting off with San Fran here, then basically it's officially the Trey Lance season, SZN, because I had to put that in there. I hate that phrase, I feel like. But are you actually targeting him as, a QB1 in your redraft leagues at all?
I'm getting talked into a little more. I've been, I hadn't been pushing it. Started, obviously been in the best ball lobbies for quite some time. So, you get to a point where you're thinking, wow, I just don't have enough shares of that guy. And so I started collecting shares of that guy. As we sit around and talk about it on the shows and listen to some of the beat writers that we're talking to there and some of the reporters, I mean, there seems to be a pretty wide range of possible outcomes, and including that, he looks like a guy who's starting his first year in the NFL, coming from a not really great bunch of experience in college at a high level. So, I mean, a lot of what we're expecting from him, we have some faith in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan put so much faith and invested so much capital to acquire Trey Lance. This was not an accident, right? This was something that they put a lot of effort into doing. So he's got that mobility. He's got a bigger arm, I think, than Garoppolo. Maybe that works in his favor. He's got some big playmaking threats there. Brandon Ayuk maybe is a little better fit, or can gain a little ground. If you saw the games he played, that Lance started last year were really good games for Ayuk, and I know Shanahan's been talking up a little bit, but just seems like he does some things that are maybe more beneficial. And also Deebo Samuel is more than capable of making those big plays down the field as well. So maybe a little less run after catch for those guys and a little more for George Kittle back into his wheelhouse. But I do think that, what are we looking for from a fantasy perspective is we're looking for that mobility, and he does have that. So, I don't know that he's a run first guy, but it'll open some things up for that offense for sure. Some RPOs and some looks that'll be beneficial for all involved. And so I am investing some now, and I'm not afraid to take him as my first quarterback. There are guys, if I want to jump ADP, there are guys available later that I feel really comfortable with. Kirk Cousins is always a super high-end fallback, maybe to Derek Carr if I jump a little ahead. And so, there's things you can do to get, to kind of mitigate what the possible risk is. But I think maybe less so than last year, because I think people were jumping on Lance and Justin Fields last year in early drafts, before we kind of had things sorted out, and people were willing to take a chance. If you were willing to take a chance on him last year, be more willing this year.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, the one thing that, and look, I had a chance to take him as my second quarterback in Scott Fish, but that was still when, we didn't quite know if Jimmy G was going to be still hanging around. I mean, he's still there, but they've already come out and said no, we are officially moving on. So I'm kind of regretting not pulling the trigger on that. But that said, I mean, in that league, you've got the incompletion and the completion, knock,
right.
And so for him, that's gonna be huge in a normal league, right? Your normal home leagues, your normal kind of standard scoring leagues. He's gonna be great,
right?
Look, he's probably gonna be, I would guess, at the best, low 60s percentage wise for passing completion. The passing touchdowns won't be phenomenal, but he'll score his fair number on the ground. He's gonna get plenty of rushing yards. We're not talking like Lamar Jackson range or anything like that, but it's just gonna help his scoring. And I mean, we saw it last year already. In the 3 games where he really shined as a starter, 20, 14, and 19 points. And he wasn't really supposed to be in there at those points yet. It was just kind of oh, Jimmy G got hurt. Yeah, you're going to have to go figure this out. He did okay. Yeah. And yes, they've already talked a bunch in camp about the gigantic arm he's got, and everybody knew that coming in already. So he can push it downfield to where that was a knock on Jimmy G. He couldn't do that. So it was dink and dunk, and, Deebo had to make plays down the, weave in and out of guys, and he could do it, and, it worked. But they won't have to rely on that as much with him as long as he's accurate. and that's going to be, you're going to see games where it's just like, oh my God, what's going on? So, but yeah, I sort of regret not taking him, but at the same time, like, I don't know, with the incompletion, point, or, the completion percentage points, I guess, or whatever they want to call it, it's not such a bad pass in a league like that. But I do think he's going to be very, very good, and somebody that I will probably have a couple shares of. But let's move over here to the Rams, and obviously we know about the Stafford, elbow issues right now, the tendonitis or whatever it is, right? I don't think anybody truly knows. There's some fantasy doctors on Twitter coming out and saying things. Who knows, right? But let's just stay in what we know. And look, Stafford was phenomenal last year. Coming over from Detroit, everybody was like, well, I mean, is it really going to work? But yeah, I mean, it definitely did. They won a Super Bowl, right? That's all you can ask for. There's more. Can't ask for much more. So finished QB5 though in fantasy, about 40 touchdowns. I mean, do we see that, like, his ADP is pretty low at 11? I've seen him drafted much lower than that, even around like 12, 13, 14 even. What do you expect from him this year? Like, what's his floor? What's his ceiling? And kind of where do you expect him to kind of fit in or where are you drafting him? What I guess is probably the better question.
Taking the elbow out of the equation, I'm drafting him well ahead of ADP. There's going to be regression, right? Cooper Kupp's going to have some regression.
Right.
Allen Robinson is going to be some additional production though as well. So, I'm not expecting that 41 touchdowns or whatever, that ridiculous number. But this offense is designed, for him to excel, right? This is what this offense is built for. And I think they have the pieces around him to continue rolling. We'll see who that third receiver ends up being at some point. Van Jefferson should be back week 1, it sounds like, but either way, they'll figure something out there. Mm-hmm. Maybe Tutu Atwell. I hear you, truthers.
No. At some point, they're talking about bringing back Odell.
Yeah, and they may well do that, but he's not going to be ready until
right.
halfway through the season, right? So,
yeah,
so we'll see. And that would be great for him as well. I mean, whenever he shows up, that's good news for Matthew Stafford. So I do think that he's being. I was shocked earlier in the offseason looking some of the quarterbacks that were going ahead of him, and I was reaping that value. I have a little less now because the price has risen a little bit, but
yeah,
it's still not not prohibitive, right? And you guys know I'm a cheapskate. I'm looking for the value, the cheap price, and some of the there are players out there. I mentioned Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. I think guys that are well capable of outperforming where their draft position is right now that you can just sit back and wait on and feel really good about. And Stafford's probably one of them. Again, the elbow is a sudden concern. I feel like I have a huge, I don't want to lead people astray because I say, I'm drafting the hell out of this guy. I'm drafting the hell out of this guy because I'm drafting like crazy, right? So if you're in one league and you want to, don't want to be associated with that risk, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
And there's enough fish in that quarterback sea for you to, to veer away and take other paths and still have some high-end production. But also, if you're one of those people who is not afraid to, leverage the fears of others, you can mitigate his risk as well. There's plenty of quarterbacks I'd be happy taking way late in this draft, Matt Ryan or any draft, that I feel like could carry me if they needed to, right? So if I want to take that swing on Matt Stafford, and I think he's going to have numbers similar or somewhere up in that range, that top 10 range, I'll go ahead and take that chance. And I'm pretty confident I can find a quarterback who can at least help carry me along down the stretch.
So let me ask you this. So I think one of the reasons why he's falling, right, is look, he peaked at 41 touchdowns. He did have 17 interceptions as well, which does scare people off. I mean, he had some weeks kind of in that middle of the season, kind of middle of the late season where it was kind of like, uh-oh, what's going on? Like it seemed like something just wasn't right. He was forcing the ball in. And he has no rushing upside. So I think people are putting I've seen Trey Lance go ahead of him.
Sure. It's understandable, right? That's not, I wouldn't argue against that. I think that's perfectly understandable. I just also think, expecting something similar, some percentage, relatively high percentage of last year's numbers isn't unreasonable either. I mean, we're drafting Tom Brady. He can't run very far either. Right. So, and Joe Burrow's like the fourth quarterback off the board in NFC right now. And he's not adding a lot with his mobility, although I guess he'll run a little more, but that, I think people are ready to look past that for someone in a good offense with good receiving assets and And there's no doubt that Matthew Stafford has that. We'll see how much they run. I mean, Cam Akers is going to be a factor, and there's some issues on the offensive line that'll be a concern, but not anything that'll keep me from drafting him.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think, mid 30 touchdowns, but then also I think his interceptions are going to come down. Like, I don't see 17 again. I see maybe somewhere in like the 13 range at the highest. So, you drop the interceptions along with dropping the touchdowns, it kind of balances out to some degree. But anyway, AJ, I don't know, you got anything to add and moving on?
No, yeah. I mean, I like Stafford, and he is my QB2 in Scott Fish. But I mean, even for a redraft, I do like him this year. I agree that there's going to be some of that positive regression. The interceptions should come down. I'm not overly worried about this injury right now. If it lingers through this month, then maybe I'll start to worry about it. And that would probably be par for the course for Scott Fish for me. So hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, I think that there's kind of a middle ground in there. I think that some of it is ceiling and some of it's floor. So
I already had somebody in my Warrior Bowl, the guy who drafted Stafford, pick up Wofford or whatever his name is.
I did that just to yesterday, I think, in the league.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I get it, but it was just sort of like I went through. It was like waivers process, and I was like, Wofford. Yeah, all right, that makes sense. I didn't even think about it. Like, I don't know. I'm not in like waiver mode yet because
this one of this. It's what league is that? I want to say something stupid here because I tend to say stupid things. It's it's like a 2-quarterback league. It's what is it? FFCE, I want to say. Anyhow, a bunch of people over in London and England and Europe, and everyone's playing it. It's 2-quarterback league. FFCC 22. So
I've heard of that.
Yeah. And so it's a 2-quarterback league, and I went early on my quarterbacks. I got Tua and Stafford, not in that order. But like really late in the draft, it's like a 25-round or 26-round draft. I went ahead and got Walford and Bridgewater.
Nice. Leaving with Stafford as my QB1 would be fine by me. Exactly, Scampers. I like it. Yeah, I mean, you just gotta have it. You just gotta be quick to pull the trigger on it. You might want a backup plan right now because apparently he's back in doing 707s. But
like he's been throwing in 7-7s all along. They're just keeping him out of team drills, and I don't want to understate the case, and like it's certainly something worth watching. But who doesn't remember last year when Jamar Chase couldn't catch? There's so many.
And there was the Dak issue of almost the exact
same
thing, right?
So
and look
we get caught up in these things because we're in that moment, right? So that's where you can see ADP literally moving with Evan Silva's Twitter, right? So there's, so you got to, and what I'm trying to do when I see those things happen, I'm trying to leverage that to my advantage. I'm trying to run into that situation and take advantage of people being scared off it. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. Up to this point, it hasn't dropped enough for me to like make a big move, and I'm already previously invested. But if it keeps dropping, I'm gonna have even more.
Yeah.
All right, let's move
so
on here,
let's jump into Arizona here. Going back to Mr. QB6, Kyler Murray. He's got his contract extension. He's got the weird clause that was in and now it's out and all that. But is this the year that he finally provides fantasy managers with more consistent production? And by that, I mean throughout the entire year. Basically, yeah, he's been a guy that's kind of fallen flat at the end. So
yeah, that's the question. And some of the comments after the season that Chris Mortensen reported, they're coming from Michael Bidwell. I mean, they're coming directly from the top. And the complaints were about his leadership and then you see that clause go in, it just sounds like they're just like trying to stick it to him a little bit. And look, it's a big investment. I don't want to sit here and say they're crazy for doing any of these things. They were crazy for letting it get out. But whatever the case, I think he's improved every year. And so, sitting here pretending he doesn't study or put any work in, I think is a little ridiculous. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe they want more, and that's fine. I would want more of, I don't think Peyton Manning was kicking back very much. And, there's, over the course of time, the high-end quarterbacks are always these super driven guys. So hopefully Kyler Murray gets there. But, some of the body language on the bench at the end of the season, some of the body language when, the big plays don't connect, et cetera. I think those were little minor concerns to the team. making a $250 million investment. So I guess that's understandable for anybody. But look, he gets better every year, and he gets better as a passer. And if you watched last year, some of the if you say DeAndre Hopkins, the targets had diminished a little bit. Is that on Hopkins? Maybe that's on Kyler Murray actually making his progressions. Maybe he's actually looking for other players and
Possibly.
doing the things that a quarterback should do. And I think that's probably more the case. I would like to see him run more, but I don't think he's going to do me any favors in that regard. But he's capable of it, and he can extend.
Yeah.
If nothing else, that mobility allows him to extend plays and make more big plays. It kind of turns into more big plays, and maybe at some point he'll take off and start running more. Either way, I'm fine with where he's going at ADP. I don't have a lot of shares because I'm generally not drafting quarterbacks that early. But if I did, I would not be afraid of drafting.
All right, Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing to really look at here with him, right, is, you mentioned the running, but he runs a lot in the red zone. He does those little, like, play action sweeps where he runs around everybody and just kind of, like, jogs into the end zone. So, I mean, he scored 5 touchdowns last year doing that inside the red zone. He scored, of course, my stupid filter messed up. He actually scored 9 doing that the year before. So, you'll take 5, 6 rushing touchdowns from your quarterback any day and any year. So, but I'm with you. Like, I'm not really targeting him just because I'm not taking quarterbacks early. There's just too many going late, as we mentioned. Stafford, going much later, and there's a lot more than that too. So, moving over here to Seattle, and not a lot to say here with this team. I feel like this will be a pretty quick discussion, but like Drew Lock's got the higher ADP. Geno Smith was with the team last year. I mean, just for sake of figuring out, like, in two QP leagues, Superflex leagues, who's winning this position and who, if you had to draft one, would be the one that you actually want to take?
Joe Bond would be the one I actually took.
I mean, I used to be a pretty damn good quarterback. I would probably get murdered on the football field from real, but no.
I think you're taking your chances with either of them. It's about 50-50. They know what they have in Geno Smith. That's why he's leading the competition right now. He knows the offense, and they've seen what he can do. And again, Pete Carroll insists this is not a rebuild. Well, maybe he gives them the best chance at not being in a total rebuild. I don't think they're in a little bit of denial. Drew Lock, we've all seen, I think, probably enough of. But sometimes a fresh start works. That's Josh Rosen. Oh, wait.
This is the time. This time it will work.
Right, maybe Rosen in Cleveland too, right? So I'm just not enthusiastic. I mean, I don't think it precludes the Seahawks from, being competitive, or some of the wide receivers I see going ridiculously low. I think we'll talk about that at some point, and maybe lower than they should, because we get this thing in our head. This is like they don't even have a quarterback. No, there are quarterbacks there. They're just not very good. Yeah. We've seen in the past that not very good quarterbacks have driven some pretty reasonable fantasy numbers. So yeah, if you made me pick one, I would go with what I know today and say Geno Smith. I would do it with zero confidence. Honestly, I have no idea how it's going to play out. I'll probably see both of them at some point. And they're going to be a very run-heavy team, and maybe that helps out a little bit. But I don't, Geno Smith to me looks like the guy who we saw enough of him last year to know that he's not super high end, but he's, he won't like totally drive the car off the cliff completely, and maybe Drew Lock will. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I agree. If I had to take one of them, it would be Geno, just because of his experience with the team. But to me, this whole scenario is basically like a blowout baseball game where they just pull a random bench player in and put him on the mound to pitch because they don't know what else they have, and they don't have anything. So yeah, this one's ugly.
Yeah,
all right, let's move it into
talk about this team anymore. So
it's a dark toss. I'm sitting there, and I'm in 2 quarterback leagues right now watching drafts, and those guys are still sitting there on that draft I mentioned. I think they're both probably still there as we head into the final round. Nobody wants to. I'm taking Wolford ahead of them. So
yeah, it's pretty brutal. Not a good situation. But let's move over to our running back position. And the ADP is as follows. James Conner at 16, Cam Akers at 17. These are half PPR ADPs, by the way. Elijah Mitchell at 24, Ken Walker the third at 29, Rashaad Penny at 35, Darrell Henderson Jr. at 48, Tyrion Davis-Price at 56, Darrell Williams at 60, Keontae Ingram at 64, Trey Sermon at 71, Jeff Wilson at 76, Eno Benjamin at 77, and the pupped Kyron Williams at 86. So starting back at Seattle, look, Chris Carson's retirement has officially opened the door for Rashaad Penny to take the reins, right? Yet they drafted Kenneth Walker. It's like kind of like they knew Chris Carson had a problem. So with Penny's also checkered injured past, his injury history. Who are you targeting out of this backfield? I mean, Penny's been productive when on the field, but that's been it on the field. Walker's was great in college, but he didn't have, I've heard ups and downs with him from many, many people. So who do you like and why?
Oh, if Penny's going cheaper, I'll take him all day. I'll take him all day ahead of Walker as well. I mean, he wasn't just okay last year. He was phenomenal. He was the league winner. He ran for more than 200 yards. Mm-hmm. Over any other running back in the NFL over the final, 5-6 games. Had plenty of touchdowns. So the arrival of Kenneth Walker is obviously a concern, just like the arrival of Rashaad Penny was a concern for Chris Carson, but it just never worked out that way. Pete Carroll has a habit of sticking with guys. And I'll just state it here right now. I'm injury agnostic. I don't care how many times you've been hurt, what it is. I mean, look, I'll avoid players with chronic injuries, but not players who are chronically injured. I mean, the NFL, I talked about this a lot. It's a two-edged sword. I mean, we need, both from the NFL and fantasy perspective, we need volume to create production. Yep. Volume also is what opens the door to opportunities for injuries. It just happens. It's a tough sport. It's a collision sport, especially at the running back position. So you can mitigate. You could easily get both of them. I think that's something I would advocate in best ball. I wouldn't have a problem with it. It could happen kind of organically given their pricing. And so I'm not against it. And in redraft, I'm not for it because I don't want to have to make that weekly decision. And when you get to that point where you're not sure who it's going to be any given week. But every beat writer I've talked to there, and I've talked to a number who cover this team on a daily basis, all of them think we're crazy to ask why if Kenneth Walker is going to be starting at some point. I mean, as long as Rashaad Penny is healthy and doing the things he did last year, they all fully expect it to be Rashaad Penny. I do too, and so hopefully he holds up well. The fact that he's the cheaper piece right now just makes me overjoyed. Love taking the cheaper piece of any backfield. I think a lot of these backfields where it looks like a committee coming, I'm not averse to taking the cheaper piece. If it was Walker, I wouldn't be averse to that either. But in this case, Penny to me looks like the lead guy until he's not, and like he may well get hurt. And hopefully I've done a good job of drafting for depth, and hopefully I'm doing a great job of working the waiver wire and taking care of that, because that's how it works in fantasy football. People get hurt every damn game somehow, right? So if you sit there and you run away from potential upside because you're afraid somebody's going to get hurt, you can't draft anybody.
Yeah, I think it's, I agree. People get hurt every game. I'm just praying that they're not on my fantasy teams.
That's true. Right? It's horrible.
No, not again. I think if I'm looking into this backfield, I do like Penny's upside a lot, and I'm a little more averse to taking him because of his injuries, and he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. But I mean, when he's been there, he's put up numbers, and they've been damn good. So
yeah, I just want to stipulate, while I'm injury agnostic, I understand not everyone is, and not everyone has to be, right? You can, I get it when you're sitting there and Christian McCaffrey is, the last 2 years disappeared with that investment. But, so I understand. But every time I hear somebody say, I'm not drafting so-and-so ever again, I think, thank you. Thank you for that. It's very helpful to me.
Yeah. So let's move it on to San Fran here and Mr. Elijah Mitchell. I mean, he was basically the 2021 version of, quote unquote, the undrafted running back who became San Fran's starter. And he projects to be the starter this year.
It feels like.
Yeah, exactly. It's always somebody different. I'm I mean, he's projecting to be the starter this year, and I mean, he notched 1,100 total yards in 11 games. I mean, do you think Mitchell will be able to maintain his role as the starter, or is Shanahan's penchant for pulling a running back out of his hat striking again at some point this year?
Yeah, Shanahan against Will and Sue at some point. But, I mean, you know, all these guys like Jeff Wilson Jr. looks remarkably like Raheem Mostert when you just plug him into that offense. He seemed to do things well. But that was the thing about Mitchell. He seemed to be like an ideal fit for this offense. So, you know, averaged, I think, what was it? I want to say 14th in points per game among running backs, you know, average scoring. I mean, you know, I think we're getting a bargain on him. There are concerns. One of the concerns is I think the last time a running back has repeated as the rushing leader for a Shanahan team was the 2015-2016 Devonta Freeman. So he does, you know, there has been a history. You know, and Mitchell's had a procedure done on his knee, clearly got beat up last year. I don't think Trey Sermon is going to be a threat to him. You know, maybe Davis Price will be. Jeff Wilson almost certainly is if something comes up. But for me, you know, and I know all the local observers are really saying that they're willing to go with the committee. And this is not really news. They've always been willing to go with the committee. But as long as somebody's getting the job done, they tend to stick with the guy who's getting the job done. So I'm going with first man up and work in that direction. I think he's a great value. I'll take that. I'll take that all day. I think people are dialed back. And again, maybe I regret it. Maybe I want to, you know, back him up. Maybe I want to make sure I draft Jeff Wilson or even later Davis Price, whatever it takes, you know, to get it done. But I do think that there's some value to be had here. And one of the things that I think, you know, that I have been told by more than one person is that Trey Sermon was a guy the scouts liked. Mitchell was a guy the coaches liked. And that's kind of, you know, we saw how that played out.
That actually,
you know, so that's, you know, the coach has the final say here, right? And especially in San Francisco when he's calling the play. So I have some confidence in him. And again, you know, knowing what this backfield is and seeing it in the past, seeing guys just get plugged in and play it like Elijah Mitchell, like Jeff Wilson Jr., like Raheem Mostert before him. I mean, someone can just step in and do a fantastic job because this offense is designed for running backs to do a fantastic job, especially guys who fit, get out wide, make the one cut and go. And these guys can all do that, except Trey Sermon. He cannot, apparently.
Yeah, Sermon is somebody who I will never draft again, and not because of injury.
I'm taking him then. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you must want to.
Sheer
AJ
disappointment.
does put the reverse drinks on people sometimes.
I do. So yeah, I mean, maybe he is the guy this year now. I don't know, but now that I said that, no. Yeah, I don't know. I've said my piece on it. I think this offense is frustrating, like many others, but you just got to get that guy, that hot hand guy, and I don't have a problem with them doing that. So,
yeah, I personally like Wilson. As you said, Bob, I do like his draft value. At, you know, the very back end of the RB2 feels pretty cheap for a guy who, I mean, could legit finish as an RB1 if he does stay healthy and is really the guy in this offense. You know, he was pretty much an RB1 when he was healthy. You're spot on. 14.1 half PPR points per game last season. He was amazing. Thanks to our good friend Jeff Lambert over at Going for Two, I drafted him with like the next to last pick in Scott Fish. And when everybody else spent $100 fab dollars on him after week 1, I was going, yeah, I've already got him. My league was like, are you kidding me? But you mentioned Jeff Wilson, and like, he's shown flashes in the past, but last year, like when given the chance, he didn't really shine. And I know there's a lot of talk like, oh, he's been running with the 1s, 2, and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's just what Shanahan does. But I've also heard things where Mitchell's getting like the predominant share of the run with the 1s right now. And
yeah,
to me, like that's the first time I feel like we've really heard that in a long time out of San Fran camp.
Yeah, he seems to be the default to me. So I'm again, if you're into the cheaper pieces, all those pieces seem to be viable. Yes. All of them not named Trey Sermon. And I say this like as the third time, almost ensuring that Trey Sermon turns into that guy. And honestly, it's all right. Give it a Shanahan thing. Yes.
That is totally right. Yeah, I mean, to me though, like Mitchell's, I probably won't have a lot of Mitchell shares only because I'm probably going to have at least one, if not both, my running backs before it gets to a Mitchell range for me.
So that's the thing this year.
But that's just kind of how the draft falls.
Right. So a good strategy has been for me this year is going, early running back and then 3 or 4 rounds of wide receiver or throwing a tight end. Then you come back in the 5th round and there's guys like Mitchell sitting there waiting for you. I mean, I think that's a pretty viable way to roll too, and just got to add some depth.
Point, I would love that, but I feel like he won't be in some of my drafts. But all right. So over here to the Rams, or where are we at? Yeah, the Rams, right? So we've got Cam Akers. Defied all logic when it comes to medical things, right? And came back at the end of the season last year after the Achilles injury. I've torn my Achilles. No way would I be going on a football field at that point. But whatever. He came back. It wasn't very valuable to fantasy managers, unfortunately. But look, he came back. That's great to see. His stock is now fairly high considering he came back. Are we expecting just a great season out of this guy now that he's been on the field, he survived the postseason, he's been going through the off season, or are you still hesitant to draft him?
I've been a little hesitant. The price has fallen from like early ADP, like early in the best balls in March and whatnot. I mean, he was kind of like going in the top 10, which was way rich. I mean, I think it's more reasonable now. I don't think it's entirely reasonable.
It's RB17 right now. It looks like
I'm encouraged by that's not like totally exorbitant. I'm totally encouraged by the volume he got coming back. Yes. Less impressed with what he did with the volume, but that they gave it to him is and expecting him to be better another half year removed from that injury. If he gets that same volume, then we have this week Sean McVay, Lynn Cohen, the offensive coordinator, saying we have 2 starting running backs. And Darrell Henderson's going to be really good. And I can think back when they drafted Henderson, my buddy Doug Farrar at USA Today wrote a nice piece, really digging deep into how McVay hoped to use and how Henderson fit in this offense is kind of a little bit of a chess piece. So when I hear that, the code language, we have 2 starters, it's a little worrisome. Look, I don't think, you look at the range of guys going right then. I mean, there's some that I like a little more that are going shortly after him. But I do think he'll be the workhorse. It's hard to enthusiastically endorse him after the comments this week. And I don't want to, I tried really hard not to read too much into that. But it just seems like, Henderson's there and they seem intent on using him. I don't know. I'm a little concerned about if Akers continues to get that volume that he got late last year and does a little more with it, everyone who drafts him will be quite happy.
Yeah, I think with Akers and when I was putting these notes together and stuff, I was looking at obviously the Fantasy Pros site for the rankings and just looking at Andrew Erickson's write-up about him too. And the one thing I didn't realize until reading this was that, when he came back, he didn't produce much, but he also went up against very tough running defenses.
Right? Tampa and Cincinnati was playing really well by that time of year. So
San Fran twice, Tampa. So
totally true.
It's something to take into account. Obviously, I mean, this guy is, he's listed at 5'11", 212. I'm probably right about there, but he's got almost 20 years on me and probably 40% body fat less.
I was going to say, body fat.
I'm going to give him the edge, the slight edge here that he's going to be able to take the pounding a little better than I could on a football field, and I think they're gonna give him his shot. Having the off season to still go through and heal if he really needed to. Coming off a Super Bowl win. I mean, hell, it's a nice season to just kind of sit back, come in and get beat up for a couple of games in the regular season, and then still get volume. So, Henderson, I think we know what he is, and I like Henderson, but I'm not jumping overboard to go out and grab him thinking, something's going to come with Akers. I just still think he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I do have I do have a couple Akers shares, but I'm probably gonna stop at this point because there is just a lot of I don't know yet. There's a lot of unknowns, so I think I've got enough. I think I've got enough with him. But I mean, look, Bobby, I think you nailed it on the head, man. I totally agree with you. He's gonna be a league winner, or is this gonna be a guy you drafted in the third round and go, crap, I'm gonna have to figure something else out. It's just one of those okay. And it wouldn't be the first time, right?
And don't forget, everybody, you can figure something else out. These league winners every year, a running back wins somebody a league that nobody drafted. Elijah Mitchell, Rashaad Penny. I could go back to the '90s, and there's someone. So not saying you can always identify them in advance far enough to secure their services, but they're there. And so 100%. Be ready and be flexible when someone isn't working out. And if you have roster room, stash that guy. You never know when someone catches fire too. So,
yeah, I think with running backs, the best bet is not necessarily stashing your own handcuffs. Not that I'm against that. I'm very much for that. But other people's, handcuffs too, 100%. Because you never know. So
nothing irritates league mates more than that. And why are we playing this game?
Well,
exactly.
And extra starting running back instead of just replacing one.
Exactly. So, all right, moving in and finishing up with Arizona here. So Chase Edmonds obviously left for the Dolphins. That basically should open the door for James Conner to see the lion's share of opportunities here in this backfield. But I kind of already think I know the answer to this since you're injury agnostic. But will Connor's past injury issues keep him from being, quote unquote, the guy for the Cardinals this year?
They may well, but they won't keep me from drafting him. I see him as a top 10 running back. So if last year you look at what he did without Chase Edmonds, and I think Mike Clay put this out on ESPN, it was, he was right there with Jonathan Taylor during those 6 games where there was no Chase Edmonds. Looked fine as a receiver. That offense is explosive, puts him in good position to score touchdowns. Again, touchdown regression seems almost certain, but I'm okay with that. I just think, for me, early in drafts, we're drafting everybody at their ceiling, right? There's nobody in the first round you are drafting at their ceiling. That's why they're in the first round. And so they may come up short. If it's going a little later, you're not necessarily drafting him at his ceiling, obviously. I don't think, because his ceiling last year was what? He was RB 7, 8, 6, somewhere in that top 10. I think that's within the range of possible outcomes again this year. And so if I'm getting a player with that kind of upside a little later in drafts, I'm all about that. I have a ton of James Conner. And no, the injuries, the injuries, his injury history has not been that brutal. It's been some nicks and bruises, nothing too serious, nothing that would keep me from, that would lead me to be concerned. As I said earlier, chronically injured and chronic injuries are 2 different things. And I'm willing to think someone could get past being chronically injured if they're, with a little good luck. When you watch Saquon Barkley get hurt last year, when he stepped on somebody's foot, what could be more random, right? It can happen to anybody at any time. And so maybe it seems like it happens more to guys that, that we're counting on. Well, maybe it does because they're getting more turns and those opportunities arise. There's more opportunities to have something go awry. So, and for a running back like these top guys who don't have a shared workload, it's like 25 car collisions a week. So yeah, there's that potential is always there, but again, running away from it, I don't think it helps you. And I think you need to be able to be ready to make moves, the necessary moves, and ride the hot hand while you can. I think he's a great pick at his current ADP. Can't get enough of him.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right. Kick it into.
Joe doesn't agree.
I'll be honest. I'm sort of hesitant to draft him at his ADP. It's kind of right on. I'm right at that range. I'm not ahead of it. My thing with him is, he wasn't very efficient with his touches last season, but then he just scored tons of touchdowns. Are we expecting 15 touchdowns again? I don't know. That's hard to predict. But 3.7 yards average per carry, that wasn't great. He didn't catch a ton of passes. So I mean, I get it. The workload we're all expecting to be there, so like that's a huge factor into it. But I hesitate with him a little bit. He doesn't seem like the most efficient guy out there, and he just relied on touchdowns last year, especially the last 8 games of the season. It was crazy. So that's where I sort of
one of the things that I like about him, like with Jonathan Taylor, is the carries in close. Right? He had. I want to look at the number here, so I don't sound like a fool. 12 carries from inside the opponent's 1 yard line, more than any other player. I mean, he's getting great opportunities. Maybe he doesn't get that many opportunities again, right? Yeah, but he's going to get opportunities. They're looking for him. They're looking to give him the ball in those kind of circumstances. Look, I get it. People, are a little nervous. One of the things I think where I'm trying to draft always is clear paths to workload. I mean, that's the biggest predictor of success to me. And so as soon as they got rid of Chase Edmonds, I'm thinking, okay, I don't see any of these other guys cut it. Maybe Darrell Williams can. I mean, he's proven to be capable in the past. But I think unless something happens, we won't see a lot of that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the workload thing. It's the efficiency versus the touchdown, ceiling almost that he had last year that kind of makes me go, all right. And now that they added Marquise Brown, it's gonna be just more passing possibly for Kyler. So I don't know, just it feels off. The ADP is not bad, and again, I'm right there with the rankings with it. So, but I'm not gonna reach for him by any means. Like if he comes to me right around where he should, then I'll probably snag him here and there. So,
yeah, I mean, a guy that's gonna put up 1,000 yards in 15 games last year. You hit it on the head with that too, Bob. I mean, his injuries, they're not really massive injuries. Aside from 2019, when he only played 10 games, he's played at least 13 games every year. So, he has missed some time, but it hasn't been detrimental. And if you're able to draft well enough and, get some depth at the position and maybe luck out with other managers' handcuffs later in the draft too, then I'm fine taking him where he's at. So, all right, moving into wide receiver here. Again, ADP is half PPR. So we're looking at Cooper Kupp, shocking, wide receiver 1. Deebo Samuel, also shocking, wide receiver 8. DK Metcalf at 18. We got Hollywood Brown at 23. Allen Robinson at 24. D-Hop is coming in right at 34. Tyler Lockett, 41. Brandon Ayuk at 43. Rondale Moore at 57. Van Jefferson, 69. And AJ Green at 85. So looking at LA first here. Let's hit on the Rams. With Allen Robinson pretty much taking over the WR2 role here that was held by Robert Woods when he was healthy, and then OBJ. I mean, do you really expect much of a change in target shares for Cooper Kupp this year?
Maybe a little bit, but so the thing about Kupp is last year, let's shave off 20%. He's still of his production. He's still wide receiver 1 in all of fantasy. So there's room for some regression, and it's coming. But is it going to be huge? So we'll see. It's interesting. I've talked to people who cover the Rams. Jake Ellenbogen from Downtown Rams is out there, and I think he's maybe trying to be a little bold on his predictions, but he thinks Allen Robinson will outproduce it, at least in terms of yardage, Cooper Kupp. He thinks Cooper Kupp will be the most productive player, but so I mean, there's going to be some targets for Allen Robinson. There's no doubt about it, and Allen Robinson can be a very good player. We've never seen him play. He's been the proverbial until last year. He had a quarterback-proof card. I revoked it. Justin Fields did that to him. I blame him. But he, this is the best quarterback he's ever played with, and he's had some super productive seasons. So I'm pretty excited. I'll probably take the cheaper piece at this point, of those two. But Cooper Kupp, I mean, totally defensible drafting him in the first round. Totally defensible if you think he's the best player in football to take him with the first pick overall. I've not seen that. I've seen him go second overall. And it's not something I would ever do, but this is the thing about snake drafting. You get 1 first round pick. if you really want somebody, you're only going to have one shot to get him. And so if you unfortunately have the second or third overall pick or something, and you think Cooper Kupp's going to do some portion of what he did last year, and you draft him, I get that. I'm probably looking at in other directions, maybe a little later. I'm going running back that early, but look, I think I don't want to overstate the case, but he seems to be ideally suited to this offense. And Matthew Stafford is looking his way. And even if, the target share comes down some fair amount, I mean, he's such a perfect fit for this offense. So I'm not against anyone drafting him wherever they have to draft him. I think that's perfectly fine. I might prefer Justin Jefferson a little bit now that the Vikings have the same damn offense and maybe every bit as good a quarterback. And so I don't know. I'm not against that. We've seen this offense support 2 wide receiver ones essentially in the past, the Sean McVay offense. So if I feel like I can get Allen Robinson as the cheaper piece, and it's a pretty good value for him, if I think he can produce at that level, I'll probably shy off Kupp just so I can get more shares of Robinson cheaper.
Yeah, I like the stackability that you can get, especially in a one quarterback league, with waiting and getting Stafford, building running backs first, and then picking up a Robinson a little bit early to mid rounds. Just to fill in
first, actually, you might. I don't know. But sometimes,
well, if
he's going
not in the first,
going a little later, but
yeah, that's how I would look at it. But I mean, I feel like Matt Stafford got on the field, threw the ball to Cooper Kupp once, and was like, "Oh, this is going to be like me throwing to Danny Amendola. We'll see what happens." And he's like, "Yeah, no, way better." just kept doing it. So, all right.
I think when you're looking at just the projected, I mean, are they going to throw the ball as much this year? I mean, I think they will, but I mean, it's not going to be 100. Yeah. It's not going to be 191 targets, but is it going to be 150 targets? Yes. And I think there's a lot of upside there for
yes,
it.
Absolutely.
I mean, this was the best statistical fantasy season from a wide receiver that we've ever seen.
Once in a lifetime season. They call it that.
I mean,
it
was ridiculous. And we thought that we had that with Michael Thomas 2 years ago. Well, wait, we did. Kupp scored like 360 some points, I think, in half PPR. That's a ridiculous amount. So
pretty monster. So yeah. I'll say this. I'm with you, Bob. I'm all back in on Robinson. I thought for sure, like, after last year, I'd be like, yeah, he's not quarterback proof. Never mind. I'm out. Got Stafford. Hey, and McVay.
I think that says a lot more about Matt Nagy than probably it does about Justin Fields or Allen Robinson. Does. But also says something about Justin Fields and that offensive line and some other things. So yeah, there you have it.
You do kind of worry though that like maybe he's just sort of like, all right, I got my money.
He's hit that point,
like,
right?
Like I don't know. Like you do worry about that. Like maybe that's what we got with like Galladay. He had his season and then he got his money and then he's just kind of like,
wait, the rebound's coming, everybody. I swear.
Did you see that? Did you see that one clip?
Danny Dimes and Galladay are gonna shock the world this year.
They rolled back at a play and threw the ball and like it. I don't know if it was the quarterback missed or Galladay decided not to go run the whole route. It was awful. It was really bad. But all right, let's move over here to Seattle. And look, obviously we know Russell Wilson's gone. We've got who knows at quarterback. DK is still a top-notch player. Lockett's not, no second, he damn good himself, right? So just what do we do with these guys though? Like, can we trust them to finish where they should be, where they're being drafted? Like, I mean, Metcalf's. I'm right now wide receiver 18. I've seen him go much higher than that.
I've seen him go much later than that.
Have you really?
Yeah, I think people are like every time there's an uncertain quarterback situation, we go back into caveman mode and we think there's a saber-toothed tiger outside the door, and so we just like totally freak out, right? And so yes, it's a bad quarterback situation. I'll point out. Dwayne McFarland from Pro Football Focus had a great tweet, and I think this is kind of pertinent, and I think he meant it as a DK Metcalf tweet. Jason Campbell with 8 games, Brandon Whedon with 5 games, Brian Hoyer with 3 games, combined for a 56% completion rate in 2013 for the Browns, but managed 4,372 yards and 26 touchdowns. Oh, and Josh Gordon had the magic season. I mean, so like bad quarterback play does not totally preclude you from having decent wide receiver numbers. Even the worst NFL offenses, Giants last year notwithstanding, tends to produce something, right? So I just think, it's easy to overstate the how horrible we get this piece in our mind where, oh my gosh, we can't possibly do that, right? So I mean, we've seen 100 times like receivers come up with great seasons. Mike's put it in the chat. Allen Robinson, Blake Bortles. That's just one of many, and so you can just throw those out there all day long. I don't know if that's going to happen, but DK Metcalf's a very good player, and if it's Geno Smith, I think Michael Sean Dugar from The Athletic kind of did the math on the 3 games from last year, and it basically ended up being his, that the 3 games stretch last year. Granted, one of those games was way better than the other games. But the 3-game average, and this is not the best way to do it, as he even in notes, but it kind of came out to his career averages. And DK Metcalf's very good. So maybe at some point we just say, okay, I'm going to draft a very good player at a reasonable price. I think, Tyler Lockett, I wish we were getting a similar discount on Metcalf that we are on Lockett, because I think Lockett's already so volatile. I think he's still a great best ball play, but I think in redraft I'm a little more concerned just because he is so boom or bust, right? And so week to week, it's hard. You can use him, but it's hard to have him as one of your starters. Also, you're not paying for him like he's one of your starters right now. So, there's that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's outside wide receiver 3 range, so definitely not starting him.
Yeah,
I don't know. My thing
I'm
with
off DK this
Metcalf,
year personally, but
my thing with Metcalf is, I mean, like, you saw him with Geno, and like you said, like he had some decent games. Actually, some of his better games, but they were super touchdown dependent, right? He caught like 3 or 4 passes in each game. It felt like, and it's just like he would just take one to the house. And I mean, maybe he'll just do that every game. That'd be awesome. But like that's hard to rely on. At least with Russ there, or at least a better quarterback. You had a better consistency feel with him. That's what I feel like DK, like the overall points might be there because he's going to get a bunch of touchdowns because he's just that good of a player. But as far as consistency and like when to be able to start him, I'm not sure we're going to get that this year. It feels like an Amari Cooper type player, right? It's like, who the hell knows what we're getting from week to week?
These guys tend to turn into, 10-foot pole players that nobody will touch even with yours, Joe. So, I mean, at some point, you've got to say, look, there's some value to be had here when a player drops enough. I don't think Metcalf's in that. I think Cooper is probably in that category. Where he's
I finally bit the bullet on Amari Cooper for the first time in like 6 years.
It's still hard for me. I have a hell of a time, pulling the trigger. I don't have many shares.
Shame on both of you.
But he's a very good player, right? He's a very good player, and I feel like at some point we just like totally overreact to the other side of that equation. We forget, wow, this guy can play, and even the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, not all of them, but even some of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL are still capable of getting the ball to a good receiver.
He fell to wide receiver. What did I say?
It was like 32, 33. Yeah.
In Warrior Bowl, and I thought him like,
I was finally just like, all right, fine, just take him.
Geez, guys, even I
better
know
you
that's
than
a
me.
value. Like if Metcalf were to fall into like the early 20s for wide receiver range, I'd probably snag him. Where he's going right now, I think I'd rather have other guys. The consistency isn't going to be there because the quarterback play won't be in.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that point, but I do think with that we take these things like sometimes and look at them and overstate in our mind, kind of overblow the situation in our mind. I do wish he was cheaper, and I don't have a lot of shares, so there's that.
I won't this year, so all right, AJ, move on.
All right, so next we got Arizona here again. So Marquise Brown appears to be the de facto wide receiver 1 with DeAndre Hopkins suspended for the first 6 games. But knowing that Brown's been more of a boom or bust receiver in his career in Baltimore, are you really paying up that much to get him at his current ADP?
I'll take some shots. Why did he want out of Baltimore? Because the scheme wasn't exactly friendly. Like we've seen him like last year, that Detroit game where he could have had just a huge game. maybe in this offense in Arizona, he'll be capable of having more of those games. Maybe he'll catch all those passes that he dropped in that game. But there's a reason he wanted to go. He has some chemistry with Kyler Murray already built in. It was pretty productive at Oklahoma when they played together for that year. So, I mean, I think there's some things to like here. I do think that maybe all involved would be better off when Hopkins is back to have Marquise Brown, because you look back to even Houston, when Hopkins has always been at his best when he has a super speedy guy working opposite him. And I think that'll be helpful when he gets back. But also, on the, if you're looking at the possible outcomes here, is maybe DeAndre Hopkins. He's really expensive going forward. Maybe there's an effort to, if he's not quite up to where he was in last year, we saw the target share come down noticeably for him. Granted he was hurt, and also he got hurt, but I mean, there's a world where Marquise Brown could remain the wide receiver one, overall in this offense if he establishes himself. I mean, I don't think that's the most likely outcome. I do think that, clearly looking at Hopkins ADP, the world does not think that, right? I mean, they're drafting him. I think it's a pretty reasonable price for expecting him to come back as DeAndre Hopkins after 6 games, and maybe he will. And maybe, Kyler Murray will look his way more. But I think with Murray there, it's going to be a capping, at least a limiting factor. Brown will be a limiting factor on Hopkins at the very least.
Yeah, I think with with these two receivers, right? We've got Brown. Obviously, I think he's talented. We saw him really kind of shine last season, and really kind of take a step forward and prove that he can get it done even in a low passing volume offense, right? But as you said, he wanted out because he wanted to go to a higher passing. Did he go to a higher passing volume offense? I don't know. It's tough because Murray likes to run. They still got Connor. They got Edmonds. Who knows? I'm not really sure. He maybe a slight bump in passing volume, but now he's got a little bit more competition. So especially when Hopkins, only when Hopkins comes back, really. I think the price is fair. To me, it might be slightly inflated only because we know Hop is out 6 games. So we know we get Brown for, at least 6 games where he's by himself, only with Ertz and guys like that. So I don't know.
I would say though that, expecting 100 fewer passes in Baltimore than Arizona is not totally out of line. 50, okay, so maybe I'm getting over here maybe, but 50, 75. I mean, I think I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more than Baltimore has.
They do, but I mean, not all of those are going to go to him, especially when Hopkins is there. So what, he might see 2-3 more a game, 2-3 more targets a game. Is that enough to boost him up into, super consistent, low end or high?
No, probably better best ball. Probably better best ball play, right? But I mean, 91 catches last year on 145 targets. That was pretty good production.
Yeah, no, best ball. Well, I love him for best ball. Redraft, he's just another one of those players where you're man, you just, especially when D-Hop is around, you're not really sure. Those first 6 weeks are going to be money, though. I guarantee that. But yeah, he's talented for sure. It's just going to be the consistency for me with him. And so there's some guys going around him that I feel could be a little bit more consistent. But let's finish off the wide receivers here with San Fran. And, of course, Deebo, the wide receiver, running back, dual threat player, was phenomenal. I mean, the first part of the season, he was the best receiver in the game. And then the last part of the season, he was one of the best running backs in the game. It was totally crazy. Ended up finishing as wide receiver 2 last year. I mean, what's his floor this year for you? And, where are you comfortable drafting him?
I don't have a lot of shares, but maybe some of it was, a little bit of it was the uncertainty. I never didn't think he was going to play, but, you've got to change quarterbacks. What you said, though, is over the course of the offseason is kind of where I wound up at. He was phenomenal when he was just catching the ball. He was phenomenal when he was running the ball. He caught the ball less, but the production was still there, and I don't really care whether he was catching or running. All his incentives are tied to running, so so we'll see how it plays out with Trey Lance at quarterback. I do think, Brandon Ayuk is a pretty good fit. We saw it in the games where Lance started last year, and he's a great deep threat. I think he's a guy that maybe I'll have more investment in, given the price, than Deebo. And there's some receivers I like at the high end better than Deebo. But I'm not talking anybody out of drafting Deebo Samuel. That would be a fool's errand.
I think we're not gonna get what we got last season. I think we might have seen a career year.
Yes,
he is still a phenomenal player.
Right, so. And we're still drafting Cooper Kupp, and we're not getting what we got out of him last season either. So same thing.
Yeah, but I'm gonna settle for 312 points out of Kupp instead of 360. Fine, all right. But Deebo was right there. I think he cracked 300 last year.
300.5 in half.
Yep, there you go. That's what I just said. He cracked 300. So I think that a lot of this whole off season that he went through was because he was upset with how he was being used, and
he was the one who asked for it. He was the one who asked for the ball. Why would he be upset with it?
Give me the ball, and it's like, all right, fine, we'll do it this way. I don't want it that way. I mean, which boy band group song is that? I don't even know if it's 98 Degrees, Backstreet Boys, or NSYNC, or Four Town, but it's like
Four Town.
I haven't even heard of that one.
It's from a Disney movie that my kids watch. So, and there's 5 of them, so I don't understand the reference of Four Town. But anyway, I digress.
The red panda movie.
Yep. That would be the one.
We've got kids still. We got young kids still, Bob. So we know all these things. So
Deebo, I love his upside. I just think he's a phenomenal talent, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up close to 300 again this year, even without as much running. I think that he can do it, and we'll see what happens with.
We saw that he could do it, right? And I think that's the variable that we haven't calculated in the equation because we just don't know what it is with Lance, right? So maybe it opens things up even more. Maybe the running back role becomes more robust even because they're doing more trick creation, more RPOs, things like that maybe make it even easier for him to produce at that level. I'm not going to be in the business of telling people not to draft Deebo Samuel this year. That would not be, even if I don't get a lot of them because I'm drafting other players when he's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to look real quick. One of the weeks he played with Lance.
He had a big play in one of those, I know.
Yeah, so he caught 3 for 9 targets, 58 yards, no touchdowns, but ran for a 13-yard touchdown. And then, I don't know why. Oh, here, week 4, 8 for 13. Targets 13, 8 receptions, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Right, that's
also
horrible,
ran.
guys.
No, yeah, he ran for 1 yard, but no touchdowns. Yeah, and then week 17
Garbage.
was also good. 6 targets, 3 catches, 63 yards, a touchdown, but ran the ball 7 times. Granted for only 19 yards, but you'll take it. Like those are really good games. You got a 31, a 14, and a 15. In almost 16 in a half PPR game, a league, you'll take that. Like and you expect Lance to be better this year, right? So you expect those numbers to be better. So I like it. I'm in.
I think it's good. So
all
right, let's jump into
tight ends.
Tight ends here. Yes, we'll go ahead and start off with TE4, Mr. Kittle. We've got Zach Ertz at TE10. We got Noah Fant at 18 and Higbee right behind him at 19. So basically keeping on trend with my last question above with Arizona, Zach Ertz is obviously going to be another person to benefit from the Hopkins suspension. Are you looking at Ertz as a possible tight end 1 for the 2022 season?
So much.
Basically, they've got Dallas Goedert 2.0 there and Trey McBride. He's hopefully going to command some targets, but
it'll be fantastic next year.
Yeah, I think it's just he's going to look and be like,
bingo.
I think we can get one more. Just the way Ertz came in and established immediate chemistry with Kyler Murray, became a go-to threat. As you mentioned. highlighted this. DeAndre Hopkins will not be around for some period of time, like 6 whole games. That'll be helpful. Look, Ertz is getting a little older, but the productivity last year was super high end. The role is going to, I think, remain robust enough for me. And most importantly, the price is right. So once I miss out on that top 4 or 5 that we all kind of like, that upper tier, however you view it, you could go with Hawkinson. A lot of people like Schultz. I'll just wait a little later and get Zach Ertz for me. I mean, I'm perfectly satisfied with that. Landing him, and the range he's going in has been perfect for me. So I'm looking for tight ends at that point. And so, like, there's another option, which is just totally punt, and I'm fine with that as well. There are plenty of guys I'm willing to, plant my flag on and have a go at it. And when they don't work out, I'll continue streaming them like we all do. I'll just remind everyone that, for all our talk every year, that he just streams tight ends. Well, finding that guy. You're not the only one out there streaming tight ends.
Yeah.
And finding the guy that's going to have that week.
10 other teams.
Right. So remember that.
Good luck. Ertz is definitely a target of mine if you miss on the, you miss on the top 3, 4, 5, right? The thing, once you get past that range, it's hard to find guys who can be reliable. They're all kind of touchdown dependent. Ertz isn't one of those guys. Like, he can actually produce because he gets volume.
Yeah.
Like, he just happens to not get the touchdowns, which is weird. So maybe he falls into a few extra touchdowns. You could see him be a tight end 5 this year if he gets a few more touchdowns, because the target share, especially when he when he got to Arizona last year, was phenomenal. So I love Ertz this year as a, kind of back end tight end 1 who could be a surprise top 5 tight end easily.
I agree.
So going over here to San Fran and the talk of the town for this division as far as tight ends, and this is George Kittle. Guy's a beast when he is on the field. He just dominates when he's there, but injuries have kept him off the field a bit too much, and so he's still going tight end 4. I mean, are you comfortable drafting him around there, and agreeing with a lot of people who are ranking him around that, or are you just you're gonna let somebody else have him be the problem?
I have him at 5. I'm fine with him. If you're drafting tight ends when you're drafting that range, I mean, I tend to not be. I've kind of, intentionally grabbed some shares the last couple of weeks just because I want to. His problem is obvious. He's too good. He blocks too good. He plays too good. So, but also he's too good in terms of yards after the catch that I want a little exposure to that portion of it. I get if people aren't in on him. I think, the top 2 for me are obvious, Kelsey and Andrews. Like Kyle Pitts, we're taking some chances with Kyle Pitts, right? That offense is not going to be fantastic. I'm sure Marcus Mariota will fare quite well. So look, Kyle Pitts.
Delaney Walker was solid.
Right, Kyle Pitts is the guy that, had he had 5 touchdowns last year, we'd be having an entirely different conversation about him. And so I'm not against him. That's why I do have him at 3. I have Waller at 4. We all know the drawback there with the arrival of Devontae Adams is going to, be a cap for everyone or not. We'll see, maybe opens things up for other people. But in Kittle's case, maybe this offense opens things up a little more for him with Trey Lance. Maybe just the offense in general, he gets to do a little more. So I'm fine drafting him there. Like I said, I haven't been making a point of it. I usually wait till later if I miss out on that top tier for me through Waller. But sometimes I'll grab a piece of that. And just because he is so phenomenal with the ball in his hands once he has it. And I mean, we've seen it. We've seen what he can do with the ball in his hands. So having some exposure doesn't bother me. It's just not somebody I'm like out there targeting aggressively every draft.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think I do have an interest in Kittle and trying to go after him this year. I don't know if I'll get the chance to. Again, he's burned me in the past, so okay.
I haven't been Dynasty, so I'm kind of stuck with him.
Well, yeah, then that would be it. That would make you do it. I do think that he's awesome though once you get the ball in his hands. But is that a product of him? And he's that good, he's that dominant when he can get into open space, or is it Jimmy G? Just being bold.
I don't care what he's a product of. I mean, you just eyeball test wise, and maybe it is. Maybe Jimmy G is the arm isn't quite getting the ball down the field. And we did see Lance. I mentioned with Ayuk is you look at the games he played, the numbers he posted in the games that Lance played, and maybe they'll be looking to go deeper, and it'll be a limiting factor. Maybe that's why I'm not aggressively targeting him. But I just want some exposure to a player with that much talent and that much ability with the ball in his hands. I want a little bit of that. If I was out there drafting in one draft, I probably would not have George Kittle on that team.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, all right, finish things off here, AJ, and then, yep.
All right. We shall do that. A little bit of rapid fire because the last two are just kind of the last two. Who finishes as the higher scoring tight end in 2022? Fant or Higbee?
Will Disley. No. Fire the dismissal.
That is good. I love me some Disley because he's dissed me so many times.
If you want, if you made me pick one, it's going to be Fant. But I have like zero confidence. The Rams have, maybe both teams have multiple tight ends that could kind of be limiting factors. I joke about Disley, but I mean he's a pretty good red zone weapon. But the quarterback play there is a concern, less so for Higbee. But there are some other pieces there that kind of emerged when he got hurt last year. So we haven't seen that late season Tyler Higbee from a few years back where he was just unstoppable. And I suspect there's a reason for it. Maybe whether opponents figured it out or maybe the change of quarterback was an issue. I don't know. But I don't have a great deal of confidence. Since you want me to pick one, I'll pick Fant.
Yeah, I fell into that trap last year. I was like, how to pick Higbee?
If you're making me pick between those two, I want it to be Gerald Everett.
All right, so I forgot to put this question up when we were talking about Kittle, and I apologize, Scampers. So, is Kittle the running back? He asked this during the art running back question, but I thought it'd be funny to rehash it.
Maybe so.
Yeah, we don't know. It's Shanahan. He'll truck some people.
Like I said, sure. He's talented when he's in open space. So give the man the ball.
Donald Parham's the answer. Yeah. We don't know. I love it. All right. So, Bob, I want to thank you for coming on. Before we close things out, though, we want to do our division standings predictions. So I'll let you go first. How do you see this division playing out?
Rams, Cardinals, Niners, Seattle.
Yeah.
And you could interchange Arizona and San Francisco.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Those two are flip flops.
Let me be different. No, never mind.
And every time I think I want to get a style back on the Rams to be fashionable, Aaron Donald says, "Don't you dare."
Yeah.
He just choke some people on you saw that camp thing where it was like the weird what the hell was that move
odd energy.
Here's my training camp prediction.
It feels bad for the other dude.
There's bodies buried under that field. Thanks to Aaron Donald.
All right, Bob. Want to thank you for coming on again. We appreciate you coming every single time, man. It's a great conversation and fun to talk to. Let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on, man.
Appreciate the invites always. You can find me next weekend at Canton, Ohio at the FX Expo with my friend Bob Long doing the Kings Classic, all that stuff, broadcasting on the series. You can listen to me 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time on the Football Diehards on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. You can also go to footballdiehards.com and find all the rest of my stuff right there, or go on Twitter at Football Diehard and say hi.
Yeah, we will be there joining you, watching a little bit of that draft. Won't be on Sirius XM, but we'll be there.
No, walk by at a fortuitous time, and who knows?
All right, good stuff, man. Thank you for coming on again, and we will see you on Saturday, I suppose. Maybe Friday night.
Maybe
if we can find
Friday
each other.
night.
There's going to be a lot of people there, so
a lot of people.
So, all right, man. Have a good night. We will talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, AJ. So we are going again on Wednesday night. We're going to be doing a mock draft on Fantasy Pros. We're going to be going head-to-head, see who drafts better. Fantasy Pros will tell us.
Clearly, it's obvious.
Yeah.
I always look better.
So, but yeah, we'll be doing that, just having some fun, and not doing it on Thursday because I need your ass to actually get in the car Friday morning to get here, not 3 hours late. Anyway, that didn't work last year. I'm gonna try it again this year.
You're the one with stuff going on Friday morning. I mean, I can get up like it's a regular day of work and drive down that way and
That
be
just
ready to
means
go.
I'm
but
on the road already.
no.
Nope, no excuses. No excuses. Play the
I'm gonna text you. I'm gonna be like, I'm already on the road, and I'm gonna stop 17 times, just to annoy you, and then be
my
like,
gosh.
I'm just getting off 70 at the exit for the park and ride.
If you beat me there, I will buy you the first 3 beers.
You heard it here. Done and
I'll do
done.
it.
Done and done. Sorry, Jody.
She didn't care. All right. That being said, we will see you all Wednesday night. Thanks again, Bob, and hit the subscribe button, like button, whatever, and make sure you subscribe to our website and
Also,
join us on Discord.
Big news that has not been announced yet on the show. Fantasy Six Pack has a store.
Yeah.
Online store.
I kind of forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I'm glad that I remembered at the end of the show. But yes,
listening, except for the actually aren't there. Yeah, fantasy6pack.net/store. There you go.
So original.
I'll put it on the website eventually. I've been back for a day and a half. Leave me alone. Trying to play back to school stuff. All right, we gotta bounce. See y'all later. We'll see you in a few days. Peace.